Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Spencer Walsh. We have a great one for you today. We start off, and we will, by bringing you the latest in key news surrounding the coronavirus vaccine. A big milestone was crossed today. The announcement, the drug maker Pfizer announced on Monday that an early analysis of the coronavirus vaccine had suggested the vaccine was robustly effective in preventing COVID-19, a promising development as the world waits for the vaccine. Also, disturbing comments from Mitch McConnell, who did not contradict President Trump's false claims the election was stolen from him, and the Attorney General gave prosecutors authority to investigate claims of voter fraud. Also, Biden is poised to name Ron Klain and Janet Yellen to key cabinet positions. We'll take a look at what that means. And finally, Donna Shalala encapsulated Pelosi's embrace of passivity as a strategy, and we fight against this continued attempt for the Democrats to attempt to blame the left wing of the party for their House losses. That is something that we will continue to do, I assume, for a very, very long time here on this show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much, and we are pleased to welcome you in today here for a big one. We do have to, of course, talk about the rapid news that has come out as the drug maker Pfizer announced on Monday that the early analysis of a coronavirus vaccine trial suggested the vaccine was robustly effective in preventing COVID-19. New York Times reporting here. A promising development, again, as the world has waited anxiously for any positive news about a pandemic that has killed more than 1.2 million people. Pfizer, which developed the vaccine with the German drug maker BioNTech, released only sparse details from the clinical trial based on the first formal review of the data by an outside panel of experts. The company said the analysis found that the vaccine was more than 90% effective in preventing the disease among trial volunteers who had no evidence of prior coronavirus infection. If the results hold up, that level of protection would put it on par with highly effective childhood vaccines for diseases such as measles. So it is really, really insane that this has been developed in such an insane time, and it seems to be so effective. And you may wonder, it's really going to be only 25 million people they're going to be able to get it out to by the end of the year, and how does that play in, right? That is definitely something that you probably be thinking. But the good news is there are other trials. There's Moderna, there's Oxford, very, very close to nearing completion. So if we have all these coming at once and they flood the market, that should hopefully lower the price for most people worldwide, and they're able to get this thing in a very easy and kind of cheap way. So, yeah, so Pfizer, again, plans to ask the FDA for emergency authorization of the 2-dose vaccine later this month. So it's a 2-dose. You got to take it twice there. Very, very important. By the end of the year, it'll have manufactured enough doses to immunize 15 to 20 million people, company executives have said. This is a historical moment, said Catherine Jansen, and his senior vice president and head of vaccine research and development at Pfizer. This was a devastating situation and pandemic, and we have embarked on a path and a goal that nobody has ever achieved to come with a vaccine within a year. Just absolutely incredible and really, really cool stuff. The collaboration, I'm assuming some sort of collaboration going on at the world stage, and what hopefully this will be shared and put together out in the best way. This is widely available. This is I think an area where no matter your political positions, you have to agree that this is where capitalism, I think, takes a backseat to humanity, and profit takes a backseat to getting this vaccine out there and getting it efficiently and cheaply able to as many people as possible for a very cheap manner. And I mean, ultra capitalists will probably say, oh yeah, we trust capitalism to get the job done, the market will. But I mean, if you look at anything regarding healthcare and the experiences that people have had, especially in this country with their healthcare since the onset of this pandemic, it is hard for me to say that you could expect any kind of a real completely smooth transition. And this is just something that absolutely has to be ensured by the Biden administration when they administer this thing and when they release it to the public. Otherwise, it will be, I think, one of the, not that they'll be punished for it anyway, not that they will really receive any political consequences. Well, they probably will, actually, because the Republicans will hammer them very effectively for it. But if they make this vaccine a burden to bear on people, and they allow it to be. I think that's going to be a big problem, but hopefully we don't see anything like that happening. So obviously stocks surge here on the news. The S&P 500 gained 1.2% on Monday, ending the day just short of a high reached in early September. Shares of the companies that stand to gain most from their trend of normal activity, like airlines and shopping mall operators, soared, while those whose businesses were well suited under lockdowns were sharply lower. So goodbye Zoom. Thank you very much. So this is what we're looking at right now. We have 38 phase 1 vaccines, which are vaccines testing safety and dosage at the moment. Vaccines in expanded safety trials, there are 14 there in phase 2, and these trials take they take different times, up to months, if you can speed them up and do them effectively, because you need at least 2 months data to show to the FDA. And finally, we have 11 phase 3 vaccines in large-scale efficacy tests. So independent scientists have cautioned against hyping early results from this before long-term safety and efficacy data has been collected, and no one knows how long the vaccine's protection might last. Still, developments make Pfizer the first company to announce positive results from a late-stage vaccine trial, vaulting into the front of a frenzied global race that began in January and has unfolded in record-breaking speeds. 11 vaccines are in late-stage trials, again, including the 4 in the United States. Pfizer's progress could bode well for Moderna's vaccine, which uses similar technology based on the mRNA. Moderna's spokesman said that it can expect interim findings from the study this month. So we'll be able to find a lot about that. So it's going to be very interesting. Some interesting questions when we can get one. That is the real question. Again, reporting from the New York Times here, and what will happen after? I think these are some pretty important questions to answer, so we will try and answer them for you with the help of the reporting here from the New York Times. As Americans are desperately want to know when a coronavirus vaccine will be available to curb the pandemic that has taken nearly 200,000 lives or more now, and allow schools and the broader economy to be open, just pretty much everyone to be kind of sane and remotely back to normal again. Scientists and vaccine makers have long said that a handful of vaccines could be available by the end of the year if everything goes according to plan. But in recent weeks, President Trump again has insisted that a vaccine will be ready, and this is again published and updated in September and October, so it's not entirely out of date there. But we do see that post it has been kind of, now we know. With the benefit of a few weeks hindsight, we can kind of say that things do seem to be looking good. And, of course, they announced it in a kind of very non-political way after the results of the election. So, Dr. Redfield, the CDC's timeline is consistent with what the best guess estimates would be from other vaccine experts who say the general public won't have access to the vaccine until February at the very earliest, but possibly more like July or August. Assuming all things go well. Of the 3 companies with vaccines in late-stage clinical trials, again, this is from back then, in the United States, just one, Pfizer, said it would have to have the initial results ready by the end of October, and they had them again November 9th. The other 2 companies, Moderna and AstraZeneca, have been more vague, saying only that they hope for results before the end of the year. If a coronavirus vaccine were to show results this year, it would shatter the previous record of 4 years for the development of a new vaccine. We see 90% plus efficacy there, a huge deal. So yeah, that is what we are waiting for at this time, and seeing something that could be cured. And now we kind of take a look at a little bit more about the future. So what's going to happen? So there really is. This is the kind of tough part about it. It's tempting to look at the vaccine as President Trump does, as an on and off switch that will bring life back as soon as we know it. As soon as it's given the go-ahead, we'll get out and defeat the virus, he said at a September news conference. But vaccine experts say we should prepare for a perplexing, frustrating year. Great. Yeah, so the first vaccines may provide only moderate protection, low enough to make it prudent to keep wearing a mask, By next spring or summer, there may be several of these so-so vaccines without a clear sense of how to choose from among them. Because of this array of options, makers of a superior vaccine in early stages of development may struggle to finish clinical testing, and some vaccines may abruptly withdrawn from the market because they may have turned out not to be safe. God forbid. Hopefully these things work. They got to go through the FDA approval. Things should be good on that front, because this is just such an important situation. It has not yet dawned on hardly anybody. But here's the thing. You should always prepare and probably expect, with the people that we have running our government, the worst possible case scenario to happen. I'm talking about whether it be Joe Biden or whether it be Donald Trump. Like, don't expect anything good until it happens. Like, that's generally a good motto that I think really sadly at this point Americans have come to expect and understand. But this is Gregory Poland saying, quote, "It has not yet dawned on hardly anybody the amount of complexity and chaos and confusion that will happen in a few short months." He is the director of the vaccine research group at the Mayo Clinic. Some of the confusion is inevitable, but some of this result is how the coronavirus vaccine trials were designed. Each company running its own trial comparing a jab with a placebo, but it didn't have to be this way. In the spring, when the government scientists began discussing how to invest in vaccine research, some wanted to test a number of vaccines all at once against each other, what's known as a master protocol. Anthony Fauci was in favor of this idea, but these mega trials pose a business risk for any given vaccine maker because they reveal how vaccine stats up against its competitors. Instead, the government offered to bankroll large vaccine trials if companies agreed to some common ground rules and shared some data. The companies were still allowed to, again, run these trials on their own, which is a huge deal there. You gotta see, like, that is obviously one of the bigger and more important things in the situation. Like, this is where I'm talking about capitalism and the drive for profit seeping into absolutely everything in this case. Literally, the health and safety and the economy and the continued viability of this planet in a large way. If we continue to go in a crippled kind of half in, half out state like this, it is a big problem, and especially if this continues. But this is, I think, definitely a passage in this article here worth highlighting. Instead, the government, again, offered to bankroll these large vaccine trials if companies had agreed to some common ground rules and shared some data. The companies were still allowed to run the trials on their own. And again, Dr. Fauci says you have to get the total cooperation of the pharmaceutical companies to get involved in a master protocol. That, I don't know what the right word is, didn't turn out to be feasible, so kind of disappointing. The vaccine vetting system, to say the least, it's just something that I think should be known more. It really, really should. The vaccine vetting system wasn't set up for this logjam. Typically, scientists take several years to prepare a vaccine before testing it on people. Early safety trials, known as Phase 1 and Phase 2, may take several years. If all goes well, and typically it doesn't, then Phase 3, the final stage, can begin comparing thousands of people who receive the vaccine with thousands who are given a placebo. It may take 3 more years to get these results, and that is what we really have sped through here. Only then, a decade or more after the research has begun, the vaccine manufacturer builds a factory. A vaccine manufacturer build a factory to make these products. That's when the real production begins. A decade plus after this has all gone. So, when the coronavirus began to spread earlier this year, vaccine researchers around the world knew we could not afford to wait that long. The WHO organized a group of experts to start what became the Solidarity Vaccines trial. Several vaccines would be given at random to one large group of volunteers, while a smaller group would be receiving a placebo. All the vaccines would be tested against the same placebo group, and all the volunteers would be living in the same circumstances. You would have a fully valid comparison, not only of each of the vaccines against the placebo, but against each other, says Thomas Fleming, a biostatistician at the University of Washington, a member of this trial group. But it took 9 months to get off the ground, and the trial will start later in October, so they're way behind the pace of someone like Pfizer, with a small study in Latin America. Around the same time the WHO was hatching its plan for its mega trial, U.S. government officials were discussing how they could best invest in and speed up these vaccine trials. Some, like Fauci, advocated this WHO-style design, but we know what happened, and this is kind of a road about how the future will look like and how it's been influenced by the past. All right, We're now going to take a brief pause, and in a moment, we will be transitioning back into the political sphere.